First of all, suicide is not a mental disorder. This is a very, very sensitive topic to talk about, knowing that I have tried to end my life through suicide. But what it is when someone ends their life. But though the goal is never to end their life, it's always to end pain. One has feelings of isolation or hopelessness or self-loath, and in that moment, you cannot see another way out of this pain, of the suffering, and one tends to think that ending their pain through suicide is the only way. So is it a mental disorder? Not really. Can having a mental health challenge or disorder lead to someone ending the pain that they're going through suicide? Yes, it's very possible.
When you look at the build-up, what
Yes.
leads to the suicidal thoughts? Let me call it that way, and you
Yes.
help me correct it.
Yes.
But I'm imagining someone who has gotten to that level to end their life. They have been going through a series of thought patterns.
Yes.
So I want to understand, would you explain how that build up to suicide, how it comes about?
It's the pain, it's the struggles, the daily events that we go through or we have gone through. And this pain clouds our judgment. Remember, the mind is what we use to think, reason, perceive circumstances. So as we go through life, let me give an example. For example, one who has lost a job, and then you start wondering, thinking slowly of what am I going to do, right? But that's different because suicide has pain attached. It's that overwhelming self-loathing, the guilt and shame, and not being able to see any other way out to end the pain. Because the goal of one who ends their life through suicide is never about ending a life. It's stopping the pain. And as they do that, the only way is one thinks, or I used to think, was if I'm not here, yes.
Just this year alone, in the lockdown, we got a report from the police saying they have so far registered 275 cases countrywide. And there has been a 20% increase reported compared to last year, which had 242, about 224. Not sure, but around that figure. But how can we help reduce these increasing rates?
First of all, I want to say I'm truly, truly sorry to every family that has lost a loved one to suicide. It's heartbreaking. So I'm very sorry for that. The numbers are increasing, and one of the other ways, apart from knowing the science, getting knowledge, is to ask the individual. We need to create safe spaces whereby we can talk about the possibility of ending your pain through suicide. So we need to learn to ask people. Be direct. It's the only way we can reduce these numbers.
Sorry to maybe jump in there shortly.
Yes.
I want to understand. No one wants to be there and someone approaches them and say, hey, you want to commit suicide? I think you need help. Because from the point you're saying is that we need to ask.
Yes.
And it's beating my mind. For example, the boy in Masaka who put himself on fire. No one was there to ask him, hey, do you want to commit suicide? So how does that outplay? How do I ask even?
Most people who are successful at ending their life, their pain through suicide, unfortunately, it's not on the first trial. We tend to have these thoughts and even try before we are successful. The signs that show that someone is suicidal, they will talk about ending their pain through suicide. Someone can even just come and say, bye, in case I don't see you tomorrow, or I'm tired of living, and we don't take things seriously. But what I mean by asking, if now that we have understood that the end goal is to reduce pain, if you suspect anyone is going through emotional or overwhelming pain, coming to them to ask. It's not saying that, do you want to commit suicide? I've been thinking of you lately. You don't seem well. That is one of the ways we can ask any individual about if they have intentions to end their life.
You told me of a time when you wanted to commit suicide. But in that, when you reflect at that point in life when you wanted to end your life, what words would someone have told you and would have gotten you out of that place you're in, out of that place and the thinking you're in?
Me too. Me too. Someone to tell me I've been there. Because you know what? We've all been there. We've all been overwhelmed. We've all been in a place where we're wondering, is this what life is all about? Show me one human being who hasn't felt like just giving up. And I'll show you someone who's not alive. But we don't talk about our struggles and pain. So someone just saying, me too, kutegela, like I get you. I've had challenges. I've had those moments. That's a very, very powerful statement, because in that moment, you don't want fake advice. You don't want to hear that all things are going to be better, because they're not. For me, because I can't think clearly already. So we're not going to have an intellectual or thought talk and assure me that things are going to be better. but you just holding my hands and just saying me too. Me too. And you share you on time or you keep quiet.
In Africa, in Uganda, for example, and other parts of Africa, when you talk about suicide, that's like an abomination. And we use I remember in high school, in my CRE, when we were talking about Africa tradition,
Yes.
when you talk about such kind of things, at the mention of them, it evokes certain feelings. You know that when you hear suicide, it's really such a big problem, and people try to distance. In Uganda, for example, they beat the corpse, they beat them up, then they bury you within 6 hours. So what are some of those cultural biases in Africa that have made it hard for people to really come out and receive mental health support and care?
The stereotypes and the stigma attached to mental health itself. As a man, what do they say about men?
Men don't cry.
Yes, men don't cry.
Yeah, you don't cry.
And yet, that is a way we release emotion, and it's okay to express your emotion. So one of the cultural biases is it's a weakness to have a mental health challenge. And that's just absurd. It's okay not to be okay. It cannot be a weakness to have a problem with your teeth or with your body. This thing of ebibyaabazungu, you want attention. Because that's what people think of when you say you want to end your pain. What's there? You have everything. It's not about things. It's about being raped and you don't know how to talk about that. Being molested. Thinking all this is your fault, especially as a child. You think of did I do something? So you tend to think your loved ones would be better off without you.
The fear of shame.
Shame and burden.
Yes.
Now, for someone who has, I've costed my family a lot. It's always Sarah. Maybe if I'm not here, they'll be better off. I was not in that moment thinking of myself. So people who say you're being selfish. I remember one time I woke up in the hospital and thinking, oh, I'm still alive. And someone was like, you're selfish. Do you know what you're taking your family through? It takes strength to put a rope around your neck. You think about it. The first time I wanted to take those pills, I put them on the bed. I thought about it for a long time. But that night, it wasn't as easy as swallowing, because that's never the goal. It takes strength to swallow, to drink petrol. It takes strength. It's just you're feeling pain and you think people would be better off without you. It's not selfishness. Is it right? No, because there's help, support. Imagine if I had been successful and ended my life, I wouldn't be here. And that's why I advocate. Be blunt. Sometimes we think diddling will help, but if you came to me and asked me, I've noticed a change about you. Are you okay? I saw that I found a book where you said you want to end your life. Or these days you're talking about death more often. Are you okay? Such a direct conversation will show that you care about me. So asking point blank and not talking about it behind someone's back. Listening and not judging never undermine someone's pain. Never undermine someone's pain. And understanding it's not about that moment. It's not because someone has broken up with me that I want to end my life. It's years of pain, the events that has brought this trigger.
As we unpack the mental health impact of major events in human history, remember that we all have major events that have happened in our lives. Our mental health determines the ability to achieve goals and handle normal stresses of life. It's about time we deal with the effects.